All right, so we're going to look at AKS2 and analyze really how Sherman Alexie, or the character Junior, creates and develops themes in his graphic cartoons. So the first one we're going to look at, we just found in chapter 6. We're going to actually look at 2, I think, today, and then I'm going to allow you to try on your own. The first one we're going to look at is the one that we ran into first, which is chapter 6. And it was this graphic, or this cartoon, that says, "All ass-kicking bruises look like Texas." And so I've attached this for you to help, and it's in your classroom Dropbox, and you can refer to it when you're thinking about each of these cartoons. So we've already looked at this once at the beginning of our unit. Now we're going to use it to help us go through this activity. There are possible themes that show up in all of Arnold's writing and his cartoons. Specifically, though, for this one, as I'm looking at it, I've got to determine which one I think is prominent. 2 that I'm thinking about so far that you might be also thinking about is bullying and or abuse. So I think you could put abuse here, maybe with violence, so something along that line. So I'm going to write that down, and you can use the same stem that I'm using if you want when you're developing your answers. I'd like to start with this. The author is addressing the topic of bullying and or of abuse. But it's not enough to just stop there. And sometimes you find that that's what you do. It's important that you continue to go and talk about how that's developed. So when we're looking at the picture, what we can sell, we've got the word Texas in bold, but we've also got the shape of Texas. Now, it's familiar to me because I know what the shape of Texas is like, right? I live in America. And anybody that's reading this probably is familiar as well. So that word familiar, Texas, the shape, I think that plays into the idea that maybe abuse or bullying is so familiar. It's such a common thing that happens that it's as familiar as is the shape of Texas. The other thing that I think of when I think of Texas is that everybody talks about how they have everything's bigger in Texas. People say the bigger the hair, the closer to Jesus. Everything's big in Texas, barbecues, you name it, right? So not only is the state huge, right? It's really large, but everything in Texas is large. So there's a sort of connection, I think, there with bullying. This is what I could say about it. And I'm changing colors so you can see the difference between just identifying the theme and the topic versus actually analyzing how it's developed. So he is commenting that not only, I think I need to change the font. That is way too bright for my eyes today. Okay, purple and green go together well, I think. He is commenting that not only is bullying and or abuse, now remember I talked about that familiarity of it, familiar on reservations, maybe in reservations, no, on reservations. It also has a large impact on the person, right? Bullying and abuse can always have a very large impact on somebody, and sometimes it does get shown up in the shape of a bruise, but also abuse can sometimes not show up physically, but it still has a really large impact on the individual. So I'm going to put it in just like Texas. So now I have, I think, sufficiently addressed the theme and commented on how the author is developing that theme. I'm going to let you do this one, but we're going to look at this one because we looked at this in chapter 6 too. I'm pretty sure this is in chapter 7. All right, hope. That's the only word that we have on this cartoon. Then we have him. This is a picture of himself, Junior, and he looks like he's popping out of the ground. Then we have ants that are all over the ground as well as all over his head. So if I'm looking at my potential and possible themes, because of the word hope, I think I can stick with that, right? We've got that hope and dreams. But how is he really talking about hope, or what is he saying about hope? This is sometimes when it's important to go back to the book. And you can do this by looking for the audio version that I've got connected and looking in that specific chapter. So when we come across this particular drawing, the important thing is to kind of look above it or below it to see what's said in writing as well. And this is the moment where his mother says, you're going to be the first one to do this. You're the first one to leave like this, and everybody's going to be angry with you. And he says, well, I think my fellow tribal members are going to torture me. So there's some connections between his fellow tribe members, the reservation, and this picture. What are those connections? And remember, I'm sticking with hope and dreams as the identifying topic. Well, when you're looking at an anthill, what is the connection of an anthill to the ants? The anthill is the home, and that's where the ants live. And since he's inside of this anthill, we must draw the conclusion or infer that he's trying to make a connection between an anthill and the reservation. He is stuck in the reservation. He's trapped in the reservation. He can't leave the reservation. The reservation is where all of his tribal members are, and these ants are representative of those tribal members. So how would I develop this? Now, remember, I'm going to start out by talking about how what he is addressing. So I can start with the same sentence stem. The author is addressing the topic of hope and dreams. Then I'm going to change colors just so that you understand that that's not, the final. I've got to discuss how this develops. I could say he uses the anthill as a representation of the reservation and the ants as a representation of the other native tribal members. Still not enough. I want to go further on. All I've really done now is just told you what the picture is symbolic of or what it represents. Now I've got to talk about how that connects to him, right? I would say that you sometimes will stop here as students, but try to push yourself. Try to get another sentence of analysis into this, okay? So Arnold does not feel as if he can escape the Indian reservation. I think he also feels small and maybe even trapped because he's only got his part of his head coming out, right? Not his whole body. So he's got part of him who can see hope or who's looking for something, but the rest of him sort of feels grounded and cemented in the reservation. And I would also say, and the ants or fellow tribal members, I think that they also kind of add a thread. I'm going to say an additional thread. And maybe this idea that it's not just looking for hope, but fulfilling his dreams, right, and his potential. So maybe you can talk about change, his change in life, his achievement in life, whatever it is that you're thinking about. But this is what I would do to be thorough and sufficient in this activity. And so now that I've practiced this with you, that I've shown you how I would go about it, I want you to start here with this one. This is a Pegasus, okay? And do your best at getting across what you think the author is addressing. Don't forget to use this as a tool to help you understand the topics and make sure that you continue to work on this between today and tomorrow. Some of them are going to be a little harder, but I'm available through Zoom if you need some help or some validation that you're doing it properly.